All right, so now let us start from where we left yesterday.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So let
Good
us
morning.
start. Good morning, everyone. So let us start from where we left yesterday. And I hope the slides are visible to you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So yesterday we had talked about this quantum mechanics, and we know what are the differences between a classical mechanic theory and this quantum mechanic theory. And we also talked about the Schrodinger's wave equation and then how it can be utilized to understand the electronic properties of the material. Right? Now let us talk to another important topic, which is bonding of atoms. Right? So whenever a molecule is formed, so atoms are bonded or connected together via bonds. So these bonds could be either ionic bonds, covalent bonds, or metallic bonds. Yeah, three bonds could be possible: ionic, covalent, and metallic. Let me select the pointer here. So in the ionic bonding, what happens is atoms transfer electrons to each other, right? So if there are two atoms which are making a molecule, right, or two or more atoms which are making a molecule, so atoms are bonded or connected together via ionic bond, where the atoms transfer electrons to each other. Yeah, so very important to remember that here atoms transfer electrons to each other. So for example, in a NaCl, okay, sodium chloride molecule, okay, so since sodium has one valence electron in the outer shell and chlorine has 7 electrons, okay, in the outer shell. So sodium donates its 1 electron to chlorine. Okay, sodium has donated here, for example, 1 electron to the chlorine. Now chlorine has 8 electrons in the outer shell. Now since sodium has donated, so it becomes a donor, right? So donor, or we say that donor, it's now a donor ion, right? So that's why we represent a donor by positive symbol here, plus symbol. Right? So this represents that sodium is a donor, Na plus. So that means sodium is a donor now, right? So transfer of electron has taken place between atoms. Sodium has transferred its electron to chlorine, right? So ionic bonding, always you will see that electrons are transferred between the atoms. Now this transfer of electrons can be only between metals to metals and non-metals. So for example, sodium is metal and chlorine is non-metal. Right? So if you go back to, maybe I had shown you sometime, and let us go back to that table. Or maybe yes, I had shown you that table where materials were present. Okay? So sodium is a metal and chlorine is a non-metal. So this type of bonding, that is ionic bonding, so this takes place between metals and non-metals. Okay? That is, transfer of electron is possible between metals and non-metals. So for example, another example is given here. This is MgCl2, right? Magnesium dichloride. So magnesium here has, you see, 2 electrons in the outermost shell, or it has a valency of 2. Similarly, chlorine has 7. Now this magnesium can donate 1 electron to this chlorine and another electron to this chlorine atom, right? So that means it has donated 2 electrons. So that is why we say, 2 plus, that is, it has given 2 electrons or it has donated 2 electrons. So since it's a donor, so we represent this by Mg2 plus, because it has donated 2 electrons. Okay, one to this chlorine atom and one to this chlorine atom. Now this chlorine in both these two cases, so it's an acceptor. It has accepted 1 electron from the sodium. Okay, so this becomes acceptor. Okay, chlorine is an acceptor because it is accepting 1 electron from sodium, and sodium is a donor because it is donating 1 electron. Similarly, here magnesium is donating 2 electrons Okay, one to this chlorine and one to this chlorine. So magnesium is a donor over here. So it's ionized now. So 2 plus because 2 donated. Similarly, chlorine is an acceptor. So this is represented by Cl minus sign. Okay. Now, ionic bonds, they require at least one electron donor and one electron acceptor. Okay. So one electron donor and one electron acceptor always is present in the ionic bond, and the net charge, the total charge of this material or compound. So this is always zero here. One is positive, one is negative, so plus minus 0. So net charge of this compound is 0. Similarly, net charge of this, that is, we have 2 plus and 2 minuses, right? So overall charge of this compound is always also 0. So this is ionic bonding. Now another type of bond is called covalent bonding, right? So covalent bonding takes place whenever there is sharing of electrons between the atoms. That is, atoms have electrons, so those electrons are shared between the atoms. This is called covalent bonding, which takes place by sharing of electrons between the atoms. For example, here, this is phosphorus here, and we have 3 chlorines over here, right? Now, phosphorus has a valency of 5, so 5 electrons are present in the outer shell. Chlorine has 7 valency. Okay. Now, sharing means that this chlorine shares one electron of phosphorus. This electron, so these two are shared. Okay. Similarly, here we have a sharing of electron. Okay. And similarly, here we have a sharing of electron. Electrons are not transferred here. There is a sharing of electrons, okay, to form bonds. Okay. Now we have a bond between phosphorus and chlorine. This phosphorus and chlorine also has a bond, and this phosphorus and chlorine also has a bond. Okay. So these bonds are called covalent bonds, which take place or which are found when the electrons are shared between the atoms. Okay. And this covalent bonds, yeah, so these are called covalent bonds. Okay. And this covalent bond, so they are possible between atoms of same elements or elements close to each other in the periodic table. Okay. So atoms of same element. So for example, silicon. Okay. So they can have a covalent bond. That is, sharing of electron is possible. Similarly, it is possible between elements which are close to each other in the periodic table. That is 3-5 elements. And that is group 3 and group 5 elements can also make bonds with silicon. Right? The group 3 means, for example, boron, which has 3 electrons in the outermost orbit, right? So maybe one here, and let us say one over here. And silicon has how many? Yes, so sharing of electron is possible over here between boron and silicon, and similarly 5, that is maybe antimony, phosphorus, or arsenic. Let us say phosphorus. So phosphorus has 5. Okay. So again, it is possible to share electrons between the elements of same type or elements which are close to each other in the periodic table. Okay. Now, non-metals and also metals, so they can also have covalent bonding, right? So covalent bonding is possible between non-metals also and also metals. So both, in both non-metals and metals, it is possible to have covalent bonding, that is sharing of electrons. Now, next type of bonding, the third type of bonding is called metallic bonding. Okay. So metallic bonding, obviously, it results into metals. So metals always have metallic bonding. Not always, but yes, they have metallic bonding. So metallic bonding makes the metals very strong. Okay. So metallic bonding, how it is done? It is by sharing of free electrons among a structure of positively charged ions. Okay. So sharing of free electrons, yeah, sharing, not just bounded electrons, sharing of free electrons. So earlier we had sharing, we didn't have sharing of free electrons. Okay. So here we have sharing of free electrons among a structure of positively charged ions. Okay. So positively charged ions are called cations, okay, which is represented by plus symbol here. So in this picture, for example, all these red, round circles, they represent positively charged ions or cations. Okay. And these cations are associated with electrons. These blue circles with negative sign, this resembles an electron over here, right? So these electrons are associated with positively charged ions. So this is my positively charged ion, and electrons are associated, okay, or what we call as free electrons, free floating electrons. Okay. So metallic bonding is possible by sharing of free electrons among a structure of positively charged ions. So all these are positively charged ions which have free electrons. Okay. So these free electrons can be shared to form metallic bonding. So this metallic bonding, this accounts for many physical properties of material, that is metals, such as strength of the metal, ductility, thermal, and electrical. So the important point to note over here is that this metallic bonding is not the only type of chemical bonding a metal can have. And also another example is here, where metal covalent bond is present, and that is present in a mercury atom, a mercurous ion, or what we call it, right? So Mg, that is two mercury atom connected via a covalent bond, metal covalent bond. So that is also possible here. Okay. Now let us talk about energy bands, how these energy bands are formed. Okay. So maybe I'll change this slide a little bit. I'll write over here energy bands. So let me write over here energy bands. So let us talk about this energy bands. Okay. All right. Now how this energy band is formed. So this is important to understand here. Now, whenever two atoms are brought close together. So let us say I have one atom over here and the other atom is over here. Different energies, they are brought together to form a solid. Okay. So, or maybe two atoms are brought together to form maybe a molecule, you can call. Okay. So various interactions occur between these atoms. Right. So when two atoms are brought together, I mean, so far we have only talked about individual atoms in Schrodinger equation. We have also talked. So we have talked about individual atoms. Okay. But yes, the atoms have neighbors. For example, this has this neighbor, right? So all these atoms have neighbors. Okay. So that means when two atoms are brought close together, okay, so their neighbor atoms, right? So this atom will interact with this atom. Okay. This can interact with this atom, or even this can interact with this also, right? So there are interactions possible between these atoms. So whenever the two atoms are brought together, right? So there are interactions. What kind of interaction? There could be forces between these atoms. That is, they can try to push each other, or maybe they can try to attract each other, right? So this atom, this can experience either attractive forces. Okay. So this can, feel attractive forces or repulsive forces, right? So that interaction is not only limited between the atoms. Okay. So we understand that atoms are associated with electrons also. Okay. And electrons have both wave nature and particle nature, right? We had discussed that electrons had both wave nature and particle nature. So maybe this atom is, let us say, having these many electrons. So this one also has these many electrons. Now electrons have wave function that is wave particle duality. So wave function also is associated with electron, and particle nature is obviously there, right? Now, as I said, that this interaction is not limited only between these atoms, but also between the wave functions of two electrons of these atoms, right? So the atoms are brought together. So let us say the energy level of this atom, right? Total energy level or total energy associated with this atom is this. Let us say this is my energy, total energy of this atom, and total energy of this atom is this, right? So now when they are brought close together, their energy level also changes. So these energy levels, so they also change. And this depends upon, the change in energy level depends on how close these atoms are. You bring them more close, you will see that these energy level change more. You bring them a little bit far, maybe one atom is here, maybe one atom is here. So it is possible that there is no interaction. And also it is possible that their energy level also not change, but then you also don't have a molecule. These are two individual separate atoms if they are very far. Okay. But yes, if you bring them close together, right? So the wave functions also interact of individual electrons. That is, wave function can overlap, and these atoms can also feel attractive or repulsive forces. Now the result of this is that energy level associated with these atoms change. And because of the energy levels change and because of the wave functions are overlapping and interacting, so this results in varied electrical properties of solids. Okay. So for example, one atom, single individual atom may have some electronic properties. Okay. Now two atoms in close proximity, they may have a different property. Similarly, three atoms in close proximity, they may have different electronic property. Okay. More atoms may have different electronic property. Okay. So this is very important to note, that the electronic property of a material with more atoms may be different from the electronic property of an individual atom. Okay. So when this happens, we say that we have a variation in electric properties of solids, right? Because solids have many atoms. So their properties vary with the number of atoms. Okay? Because with the number of atoms, the interactions are more, the energy levels also change in solids. Okay? So this is a very important point to note down here. Now, so far we had, as I said, considered only a Schrodinger equation for a single electron system. Okay. Now, but single electron system is not possible in a material. There are many electrons, not just one electron, and those electrons also interact. So that means one has to solve the Schrodinger equation for an interacting system. Interacting system means there are many electrons, and those electrons interact with each other, right? Because atoms are in close proximity, so their electrons will interact with each other. That is, the electronic wave function will overlap each other. So that is called electronic interaction. Okay. So Schrodinger equation for such interacting system should be solved. Okay. So when we try to solve the Schrodinger equation for two electron wave function, that is two electrons. So two electrons will obviously have two wave functions. Okay. So one has to solve now the Schrodinger equation, or let us say we make system little bit complex. Though there are always not two electrons in a semiconductor, there may be many electrons and many wave functions. So let us but consider only a simple situation where now we have two electrons in the system, right? So Schrodinger equation is solved for two electron wave functions. So when this is solved, this is called linear combination of the individual atomic orbitals. Okay. That is, the electron wave function are overlapping, and Schrodinger equation for two electron wave function is solved, and this is called linear combination of atomic orbitals. Okay. So linear combination of atomic theory, orbital is another theory. So which says that, so what this theory says, linear combination of atomic orbital, this says that when two atoms are brought close together, so let us say this was the energy level associated with the electrons in this atom, and this was the energy level associated with the electrons in this atom, right? So when two atoms are brought together in close proximity, their energy levels split. Okay. So LCOW theory, that is linear combination of individual atomic orbital theory, says that when two atoms are brought close together, their energy levels split. So I'll write here their energy levels split. Okay. Their energy levels split into two levels, into two energy levels, or maybe two levels, I'll write simply. Okay. So what are those two levels? So their energy levels split, and now I have an energy level here. So this is one energy level, and the other is here, right? So when two atoms are brought together in close proximity, their energy levels, they split into two energy levels, right? So this is one energy level, which is called anti-bonding energy level. So this is called anti-bonding energy level. I'll write EL for energy level, right? So anti-bonding energy level, and the other level which is formed is called bonding energy level. Bonding energy level, EL. Bonding energy level. Okay. Right. So I'll repeat again that this LCOW, that is linear combination of individual atomic orbital theory, says that when two atoms are brought close together, their individual energy levels, they split into two energy levels. One is called anti-bonding energy level, the other one is called bonding energy level, right? Now this anti-bonding energy level, obviously, so that means it is at higher energy, right? So this is, let us say that energy varies in this direction, E. So anti-bonding energy level or higher energy level, I'll write higher energy level, and bonding energy level, I'll say lower energy level. It is lower energy level. Lower energy level. Okay. Now this anti-bonding energy level, this contributes to a bond, right? So anti-bonding energy levels are different. So atoms are still here, right? So electrons associated with the atoms are also here, right? So now the bonding, this anti-bonding energy level, this results into a bond which is called sigma bonds. Okay. Sigma bonds. And this lower energy level bond or bonding energy level, this results into pi bonds. Pi bonds. Pi bonds, or we call them covalent bonds. Covalent bonds. Right? So bonding energy level represents this pi bonds or covalent bonds, and anti-bonding energy level, this represents higher energy level, and sigma bonds are formed here, right? So sigma bonds are obviously very strong because the energy level is very high, right? So sigma bonds, there is bond energy is high, so they are very strong bonds. Sigma are strong. Okay. However, covalent bonds, which are at lower energy level, so they are weaker compared to sigma. They are weaker, and that is why they are easy to break. Okay. So we have two bonds, that is sigma bonds and pi bond, or what we call as covalent bond, and this level is also called covalent bond energy level, right? And covalent bonds are weak, and they can be easily broken, right? Yeah. Now it can also be found that the probability density, right? So probability density at this point, that is in the covalent bond, not covalent bond, let us say probability density in the anti-bonding energy level, right? So it can be seen that this anti-bonding energy level or orbital has a higher value of wave function, and therefore it has higher probability density, that is probability of finding an electron is high in this region, right? So the probability of finding an electron or probability density function or electron probability density is more, or finding a probability of finding electron in this anti-bonding level is high, right? Okay.
Excuse
So
me,
this
sir.
was about just two atoms, right? Now in a solid, you will find that there are many atoms. Yeah, as I had already discussed, that solid means you have many atoms in XYZ direction, right? So in a solid, what happens when the atoms are brought together, right? So in a solid, when many atoms are brought together, now their energy levels also split, and when they split, since there are many atoms and many energy levels, so when these energy levels split, they form continuous bands of energies. They form continuous bands of energies. I'll show you how the continuous band of energy look like. Yeah, here. So now the split levels, they form continuous bands of energy. So you will see that you have bands like this, right? Continuous bands of energies. So when the atoms are brought together in a solid, okay, and yeah, so when atoms are brought together in a solid, you have continuous bands of energies, right? So that means that the we have energy states. Let us select this pointer maybe. Yeah, so that means that we have energy states in silicon atoms. Okay. So if I talk about only single atom, so I have energy states in an atom. And if I talk about a crystal, right, that is a solid. So solid, in solid or silicon crystal, we have energy bands, right? So continuous states of energies. So that is energy bands. Okay. Now the highest nearly filled band is called valence band. So we had discussed, in fact, once you simplify this figure, okay, so this is continuous band of energies, and this band of energies changes with the atom spacing, right? So let us make a more simplified picture of this energy band model, so which is presented over here, right? So this is a simplified version of energy band model, right? So this energy band model, simplified version of this energy band model is this, which we had talked about earlier. That is, you have a conduction band energy level and a valence band energy level, right? So the highest nearly filled band is called valence band. So this is my valence band, okay, and this is the top of my valence band. So yeah, so valence band is also below this, also is valence band. And so that means this is the top of the valence band. So I'll write top of the valence band. Top of the valence band, VB. Similarly, conduction band. This conduction band is also present here. Also, it is present, not just here. This line represents conduction band's bottom. This is bottom of my conduction band. Okay. So bottom edge of conduction band and top edge of valence band. So we have identified these two things. So the highest nearly filled band is called valence band, and lowest nearly empty band is called conduction band, right? So in an intrinsic semiconductor, we had seen intrinsic or pure semiconductor at 0K. Okay. At 0K in an intrinsic semiconductor, valence band is completely filled. Right. So valence band is completely filled with what? It is filled with electrons. Right. So there are electrons. It is completely filled with electrons. And conduction band is completely empty. It doesn't have electrons. It doesn't have holes also. It doesn't have electrons also. Right. So at 0 Kelvin, an intrinsic semiconductor, that is a pure semiconductor, is highly resistive. Right. You apply bias, nothing will happen. No current will form. Right. Because the valence band is also full. So electron cannot conduct in valence band, because to conduct they need some space. To move the electron in valence band, you need some space. That is, some electrons, if they are missing, then only the electrons can move. Similarly, in the conduction even doesn't happen through the conduction band, because there are no electrons or no holes in the conduction band. Okay. So highest nearly filled band is called valence band, and the lowest nearly empty band is called conduction band. Okay. At 0K in an intrinsic semiconductor. Okay. So some time back, I think 2 lectures back, we had also discussed how to identify the material on the basis of band gap. Right? So band gap and material classification, how to classify material based on the band gap. Right? So for example, I have here the energy band model of silicon, which is a semiconductor, and energy bands of silicon dioxide shown over here, and energy bands of metals are shown over here. So this silicon is a semiconductor which has a band gap, right? So this is my band gap over here. So valence band and conduction band are separated by 1.12 EV energy, right? So semiconductors, that means have a small band gap. Similarly, if I talk about this insulator, which is silicon dioxide, it has a very large band gap, somewhere around 9 EV. Okay. That is 9 EV separation between the conduction band and valence band. Okay. So that means insulators have large band gap. So this we had already commented, just a revision. Then we have metals, okay, where the conduction band and valence band, they overlap. Okay. So that means metals don't have band gap, because conduction band and valence band are overlapping. And in metals, another important thing to note is that conduction band is partially filled. Okay. So when conduction band is partially filled, so that means I have free electrons in the conduction band. Partially filled means there are free electrons in the conduction band. So I have electrons in the conduction band. Partially filled, so that means I have space for these electrons to move also in the conduction band. If it is completely filled, then there is no space for electrons to move in the conduction band, right? So that means if it is partially filled, then as soon as you apply a bias, okay, you apply a bias through this semiconductor, through this metal, okay, which is partially filled, which has partially filled conduction band. As soon as you apply a bias, the current can directly be seen, right, at the same instant. Because, just a second. Yeah, so the current can be seen as soon as you apply a bias, because we have already got free electrons in the conduction band, and conduction band is not completely filled, it is partially filled. Now this band gap energy can also be measured by seeing how much energy photon is absorbed, right? So this Eg, that is band gap, can be determined with minimum energy is h nu of photons that are absorbed by the semiconductor, right? So you just shine a light on this. So this photon has an energy, let us say something. Okay. Now if this photon will only be absorbed if the band gap here, that is this band gap, is greater than or equal to the energy of this photon, right? Now you will find that band gap energies of some popular semiconductors, for example, germanium. So it has a band gap of 0.67. Similarly, silicon, it has a band gap of 1.12 eV. Yeah, all these values are in electron volts. And similarly, gallium arsenide, which is a compound which is used in LEDs, it has a band gap of 1.42 eV. Now, another important thing to discuss over here is the density of states. Right? Density of states, or we say it is density of electronic states or available states. Okay? Density of states or electronic states or available states. So when I say available state, so that means it is not occupied by electron. Right? So for example, in conduction band and also in valence band. Right? So the conduction band energy level grows here, okay, and valence band energy grows from maybe some bottom to this point. Right? So all these energy levels in the conduction band, they must have available states. Right? So that means each energy level may be associated with some free states. Available states, I'll write available free states. Okay. So let us say between this energy level and this energy level, I have, let us say, two states. Okay. Now these two states should be available. Okay. Then only maybe, so let us say from here, there are some electrons at this energy level. Okay. And let us say we excite these electrons. They are energized, they get more energy. So they want to move to either this state or maybe to this state. Right? So the movement of electron from this state to these available states. Right? These are electronic states or density of states between these two energy levels. Right? So if these states are available, then only this electron can move here, and then only this electron can move here also. Right? So electron states available means it is not already occupied. If this is already occupied by electron, or maybe this is also, so this electronic transfer from this energy level to this is not possible. Right? So if this energy level or this state is occupied already, okay? So these are energy levels. This one is energy level. This is also energy level. And between these energy levels, I have some electronic states, or what we call as density of states. Right? Density of states is number of states available per electron volt. So density of states is number of states, number of electronic states or available states, number of states available, okay, number of states available per electron volt energy. Right? So that is, each energy level is associated with states, and these states should be available. That is, they must not be occupied. So for example, in this case, if this is occupied already by electron, then an electron from this energy level, it cannot move to this state. Similarly, if this electronic state is not occupied, then it is possible for this electron to move from this to this, because this is available. It is not already occupied. Right? So for example, here, if I say number of state per energy level in silicon, so it is somewhere around 100 states per EV in silicon. So this is available number of states per EV in silicon. Okay. In silicon, the density of states or number of states which are available is 100 states per electron volt. Okay. Now, so that means in conduction band, in energy range, that is in this entire conduction band, I have electronic states. Right? So these are electronic states which are represented here. Right? So similarly, in valence band, I have electronic states, okay, or what we call as density of states, okay, because these states are dense. right? So that means this one, this is completely black, so it is very dense. So that means I have to find out how many states are present per unit energy level. Number of states available per unit energy level, per EV energy. Now, if I try to plot the density of state profile in conduction band, okay, along the conduction band edges. So we had seen in a EK diagram, the conduction band and valence band looks like this, okay, in an EK diagram. Okay. So somebody has to find out the density of states around the edges of this conduction band. Right? So this is a conduction band. Only the X part is plotted, XY, positive XY, negative XY is not plotted here. Maybe here also negative XY, right? So somebody has to find out the density of states along the edges of this conduction band. Right? So this is conduction band. So density of states available around the edges of the conduction band, and similarly the density of states around the edges of this valence band. Right? So this conduction band, this is conduction band entire. So these are the edges. Yeah? So this is the edge of the conduction band. Similarly, this inverted U line which you are seeing. So these are the edges of the valence band. So the density of states at the edges, let us say it is given by GCE for conduction band, and for valence band, let us say it is GVE. Right? So near the band edges or this profile, that is conduction band profile's density of state is given by this relation. GCE is Mn star root of 2Mn square E minus EC. Right? For example, I am trying to find out, let us say, at this energy level, which is, let us say, E. Right? So the density of states at this point, that is at energy level E, is E in the conduction band is given by GCE is equal to Mn square Mn star square root of 2Mn star E minus EC by pi square HQ. Right, where E is greater than EC. Right? So EC lies over here, so E is greater than EC. So by this, we can find out the number of states available at any particular energy level in the conduction band by this relation. Similarly, for number of states at any point in the valence band, so this can be found by this relation. So Mn star and Mp star are the effective masses of electrons and holes in electrons and holes here. So for this, we have E less than EV. That is, I want to find out, let us say that density of states at this point in the conduction band. Let us say this point is E. Okay. So EV is present over here. So E is obviously less than EV here. So this condition is fulfilled, right? So one can find out the total number of, I think I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible,
Yes,
sir. But
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
sir, we have another class.
Yeah, so I'm just concluding the class.
Okay, sir.
So let us end it here itself. And if you have any queries, then maybe you can ask. So the class is ended here itself. If you have any queries, then maybe you can ask. So if there are no queries, then maybe let us end the class here itself. And we will continue from the same topic on the next class. If you have no queries, then maybe we will end the class here itself.